this is a topic that is not like this isn't a fun attitude, knowledge, high five kind of a topic, but I tell you what, this is something that will impact your area and impact your personal business as much or more than anything else. I'm going to talk about a topic called brave communication. And we do a little of this sometimes in the Moving Up seminars, a lot in Corings. There's been a pretty good percentage of our career that's been spent kind of, JR says, brain spanking. That's the last resort. We try to massage it a little bit first and do some triage first and some of these things. But working with people, if you can picture maybe your level of leadership might be like a 25 passenger bus, and you feel like you're growing. There's 2 new people get on it, but then if 3 get off out the back and you didn't even see them, and you feel like you're growing, and then like 1 new person gets on, but 2 more get off the back, and you look around after a year and you have the same number of people on your bus as you did last year or the year before. It feels like growth, but it's just activity. It feels like you're moving forward, but there's no increase in numbers because possibly the level of your leadership is not extending any longer than the reach of your own arm. Yeah. And this is a leadership issue, and this is a leadership environment. I love this weekend. I love that there's no guests here. I love that this is, a very rare opportunity where you're being poured into. This is high-level content to a small number of people. Convention is, large number of people, something for everybody. But if you're leading an area, you're dealing with people. And it's been said a lot of different ways, but everything looks good drawn up on the board. In football, they use the examples about on the board, it's all about the X's and O's and everything goes for a touchdown. But on game day, it's about the Willies and the Joes. And it doesn't always go like it's supposed to on the board. And it's because people coming into your business, different levels of leadership experience. Some of them come in kind of wounded. Some of them come in kind of offended. Some of them, if everybody was just motivated by the money, because money is clear and you can count it. If everybody said, I just want to come into this and make money, it would be a beautiful thing. Yeah. But there's ego and there's recognition and there's offense and there's all of these things. And if I can promise you, if you build an area with a lot of people identical to you, it's not going to be very good. And if you build an area with people very different from you, dynamic, different personalities, powerful personalities, people that want to flip the table and they're full of, something. Like you can work with those people because they're alive and they're moving, but to get them to work together. We've put a lot of energy into our business throughout the years working with dynamic people. I mean, we have Tom Holden and Jackie Blasco and Colin and Trinity and, different people that are just, amazing leaders, but you can't headlock people and control them. Right. You have to lead, and I can't think of a leader in our organization over the years that we haven't had the need for brave communication with at one point or another. And it doesn't necessarily mean you're coming in to correct. It just means you're not going to be an ostrich and you're going to do the uncomfortable thing, and that is not avoid the situation. Oh, maybe it'll get better. Maybe they'll listen to a tape. Or what a lot of people do, wait every 6 months, we'll put him in front of JR and he's going to fix that. But you're the one that's been called to lead your area. I'm not in charge of Portland. I'm not in charge of Reading. I'm not in charge of Tampa. I'm not in charge of Milwaukee. You are. You're the one that's been given the authority within this system over that area. So you have a leadership now situation that extends beyond just your personal line of sponsorship and as you grow. And I want to talk to you about how things go because it's sometimes so silly, the things that will derail people and eventually will fester and eventually fester. There's a couple of leaders that ended up, either exiting themselves or were ushered out during the time Stacy and I were in Mexico. And when I heard about it, I was like, oh, that makes perfect sense. Because the last 3 conversations I'd had with that person, there was an offense. That wasn't a big deal, but there was an offense that was festering. Because they kind of bring it up. And it's not a big deal, but hey, what about this? And you're like, I don't know. It's not, but it's there again. And it's there again. And then you hear about that later. You're like, oh, well, that's the natural progression of where that person's mind was and how they were handling that offense. Okay, so let's talk about this just a little bit because you need to be aware as a leader in your area quickly because people are probably not necessarily going to be so self-aware they know what's going on even in their own heart and come to you and say, you know what, I was really hurt when I wasn't recognized at this event. And I'm thinking about disengaging a little bit more. Maybe I'm not going to be a part of the association. And like they're not that aware. the parent has to be the parent, the child has to be the child, and your role in the association as the local coordinator, you're the parent of your town. You know, you have to take the high road, and you're the one that has to, man, we have to sit down and have uncomfortable conversations. We adopted a son that came into our life from a children's home in high school. But maturity-wise, when you grow up in an institutional environment and there's never a parent at the table and you're just kind of like just fed food and kept alive, you know, we put him in our home and we're at the table almost every night for a long period of time. There would be something sideways to be like, okay, out, the three of us. Sebastian, Stacy, and I sitting there, we're like, all right, where did this night derail? Where did you go sideways? Where were you in the story that happened here? And he's like, wasn't me, it was, okay? But here's what you can control, you. Where were you in this story? Tell me the story again, and where were you in it? Man, that is more fun to watch Netflix and eat popcorn and high five and play games. But we entered into a season that was much bigger and more challenging than what we anticipated. But boy, it played a role, but because of 100 uncomfortable conversations, had a lot of tears. Man, now I got a guy that like couldn't speak English. Now he reads Tony Robbins and this stuff in English every day and owns a restaurant. And his level of maturity and handling problems are unbelievable. And this is a guy that would, you know, by 16 years old and never had a conversation around a table, around a meal. Didn't have parents anywhere. So like I know that you guys can grow in this area and lead well. And the payoff is great because if you want, I mean, if you're going to write one thing I say down this weekend, write this quote. If you're going to ever have residual income, you have to learn how to develop and maintain residual relationships. People rarely quit this business. They quit relationships because they didn't quit life. They're doing something else. They're just not doing it with you.
Totally.
And it's not because the pay plan didn't work or they don't like OPC. Something happened, and it's easier to keep. You know, some people, you just want them out of your life, right? Fine, keep going. But that's not the case with a lot of them. There's people that we need to manage our relationships with them well and keep them. And let them grow and mature like meat in a crock pot. Just let it get better, right? Most of my analogies come back to food, you know, or football. I'm a very simple person, very easy to read. So I'm going to walk through a few slides here real quick. You know, it's used the example of it's kind of like, you know, rowing a boat across a lake. And that, I mean, in a beautiful picture, it's like, you know, Harvard and Yale, they have the, you know, the skulls, the people in the boat, and everybody's like a machine, and everybody's doing it great. But, you know, sometimes your life and your business looks more like this, and sometimes your organization, the people aren't even rowing. They're hitting each other with the oars, or they're splashing in the water, and you got another guy back here who's disengaged because of a fence, and he's eating nachos, and he's not even doing the thing, you know, anymore. And so sometimes when you go through that, the storms in this business are people issues. They are everything about this business that's going to allow you to maintain success is your ability to lean into uncomfortable situations and have brave conversations. And I'm not saying they're fun. I'm just saying, you know, that they're worth it. So here's what this looks like. Talk about evolution of offense. There's the event. Something happened, and it's usually trivial. You know, we've ended up in a lot of situations doing marriage conferences and different things, and you start breaking stuff down. A lot of times it's little offenses that sort of accumulated over a long period of time. It's a lot of times not a big issue. It's just a lot of unspoken offenses that you just didn't work through and nobody feels heard. Yeah. Okay, and our meetings are similar. So you guys are all in leadership positions, and as the parent of your area, you need to be identifying where did somebody kind of step out and disengage. Like they're leaning in, they're going. Did they get a bad no from their brother-in-law? Sometimes we just write it all off as they just got negative. Did everybody just get negative? I mean, that's ever left your business, that's left your area, that's lowered their level of engagement? Maybe, maybe not. The offense could be something just as simple as at the end of the event, we're recognizing people, thank you, and thank you, Bonnie, and thank you, Dad, thank you, Amber, thank you for all this. And then, like, I didn't say Andrew's name. I just forgot. It wasn't my note card. Exactly. Just stuff happens, right? Yeah. And it's not a big deal for Andrew maybe in that moment. And he kind of blows it off. That's stupid. I can't believe it even bothered me. I mean, I brought all the, you know, I made the coffee and I brought the stuff. Or everybody contributes. We told you this morning, if you want a successful area, you need to find an area where you got 50 people that think the event couldn't have gone as well without them. And the way that you steward that is by continually reminding this event couldn't have been as good without you. And so it's a little thing, but then Andrew has a choice at this moment. Do I let this really fester and bother me or not? He might just blow it off. I don't know what his level of maturity is in this. He might be an executive and stuff happens all the time and blah, I don't care. But he hasn't maybe gotten his first check, or he's only gotten one, and the second one's not come as fast as he thought, and one of his customers maybe returned some. So he's just kind of, man, why didn't they recognize me? I help. So there's a little event, and typically it's trivial, and we all blow it off, like, he'll be fine, get over it. So as it continues to grow, he'll be getting to kind of gain validation to verify and validate his offense. It's like a little birthday candle to start with. It's not like a raging California forest fire, but it can become one. And what it starts with is a little birthday candle size offense, and he's like, he has a choice now. Do I partner with this and allow this and let it grow or not? And a lot of people just come in, and I'm telling you, they've not been trained in how to have good relationships, to maintain relationships. It's too easy just to unfriend somebody and move on. And when we're depending on entry-level people in our business to work through their offense, we might be missing out. And I'm not saying you got to go pander to everybody all the time. Correct. But we have to be aware as a leader how you address these things. So if it continues to go on, Andrew may, I see him at the convention and I just kind of walk by. And he leans over to JR. See how wide it is? He didn't even say nothing. And I had to go pee and I'm getting ready to speak next. There's a lot of no harm, no foul. Nobody did anything wrong. Yeah, like nobody did anything wrong. Andrew's done nothing wrong. I've done nothing wrong. But now I've validated his offense from the local. It's just a simple thing. I went by, and then see how that was?
And don't be the friend beside him that's agreeing with
Yeah, he's like, it kind of validates in his heart, which that's kind of where it grows. Step 3 is building camps. You start to see this after a while. You're like, yeah, see, Jim used to be one of us, and now he's 3 pin levels, and now he's telling us how we need to be doing it all the time. And people begin to do this, and they just tiptoe into it. They just kind of test the water a little bit. They'll be like, Wendy, you kind of see what's happening here. You notice how nobody in our team gets to do the thing, and they're just a little. It's just they test it out though, just to kind of see where you're at. It's like sticking a toothpick into a cake, see if it's done. They just kind of like walk up and like, hey, can I build this story with her? And this is a whole nother training, guys. But words are things, and they come from your thoughts, and your thoughts are what create the reality around you. All right, and so when these people are partnering, even in their own undisciplined way, I'm sharing this with Wendy, and she's like, I think so too. Nobody with named W gets to go up and do a thing, or nobody whatever. They don't ever let women do it. They don't ever let it's like there's a thing, and the person begins to partner with other people on that and build camps, because here's the philosophy. They don't even do this intentionally. I think it's just the way we're wired, so it just is. I don't fight what is. I just want to work with it. And here's what is. People feel like, I don't like the way this is going here, and I really probably don't have the skills, or maybe leadership never allowed a voice to be heard. So it could be our fault as well. But if I get enough people to agree with me, I come to here and Colin, or maybe I'm a speaker, and if I can get everywhere I went and spoke, there's people I'm like, every time I've gone somewhere, if this person spoke, there's an issue about this thing. And then you're like, oh, well, this guy's gone. I'm like, that surprised me. I knew that a year and a half ago. Every time I spoke somewhere after that guy, there'd be a little bit of a problem with people there because they would think they didn't like the font on the website or something. And so I began to build camps, and it might be as a speaker with local coordinators with you when I come to visit. I'm like, Shelley, isn't this crazy what they're doing with the font? It used to be in Times Roman, and now it's Italian. That's a bunch of crap, right? It's because it's all stupid because it's irrelevant. I tell you what, if your mind's right and you're going forward, there's nothing they can do in the red brick building to hold you back or propel you forward. It's all you building your business, and they're only gas on the fire. And so I may go to Shelley when I speak there, and I go to Tampa, and I call you it's like I begin to build. So you need to recognize when somebody's coming to you to build a camp. As a leader, you can't partner with it for a second. It's got to be like, I don't know about that. I'm not saying you can't discuss an idea, but a lot of gossip is structured around like, hey, I'm not saying, I'm just saying. Right. I am not getting stuck on the dot. I'm just saying. I'm not saying about I'm just saying. So it kind of continues to grow and evolve. So here's a tip on how to. It is a pyramid. all relationships become one. Diamond right. A triangle. It's a Demerite.
Yield sign.
So here's a quick little like tip, a breakdown for in your area when something happens or people come to you and there's a thing. It starts one-sided. Jim comes to me and it might be a problem with Cullen. And it's not even a big deal. Jim may come to me, hey, I'm not saying, I'm just saying. I mean, you know, why is Colton make people say yes or yes when he speaks? I mean, I don't know about, you know.
Don't give our personal conversation.
I mean, that's kind of redundant. And I'll be like, and you can't trust yourself as a leader either. You can't trust yourself as a leader because you know, Jim could come to me with a problem, and I don't trust my own heart on this because Jim, when he sells me this thing, it's so good. I'm like, that is a bunch of crap. I mean, son of a freaking Cullen. Okay, you know, because Jim's probably rehearsed this at his kitchen table and in his car, and when he tells it, I'm like, and it's so one-sided. I'm like, he did that with your person. I'm like, God. And so I may come to Cullen and I'm like, Cullen, what the hell? You know, and come to find out, he's like, well, did Jim tell you that I talked to the guy, and actually he's my cousin, and I'm like, oh my God, are you serious? Well, he left out a pretty important little piece of information. And so as a leader, I'm put in a position here where I'm measuring one person's offense, and then I'm going over here and communicating with another leader. And it creates this triangle. Okay, it's like communication triangles. Jim's coming to me, and I'm like, oh my God, okay, I'll talk to Cullen, you know, it's okay. And then I talk to Cullen, and he says, okay, I won't do that anymore. I won't take Jim's parking spot at the UBP. Okay, good. You know, but you need to tell Jim this and that. And I'm like, oh my God, so okay, well, I'll handle Jim. He'll just get pissed off if you tell him. So I come to Jim, and I got this triangle, and I'm back and forth between these two people. And this isn't a rare thing. I've seen it everywhere. I've seen it everywhere between these two people. Here's where it becomes brave communication, having the courage to do the uncomfortable thing. This doesn't feel like a good idea. But when Jim comes to me with the deal, you know, Colin, I'm like, you know, I wasn't there, you know, and that's a great point. You know, I'm going to collapse that triangle, and I'm going to do it as quickly as possible. My mental time is like 30 to 60 seconds because you kind of want to hear what's going on. Maybe I can just, but if it's a thing, if Jim's got a thing, and you know what I mean by a thing, because you know when you see it, it's like, it's a thing. You know, I say, you know what, if it's in the area, if it's at a UBP, I want to be quick and precise like a surgeon and say, hey, that is such a good thing. You know what, I want to grab Cullen real quick. Let's just go out in the hallway because I bet that was a mistake. Let's just step out here 1 second.
Yeah.
And it's just bam. And I tell you what, that sounds like, oh, I don't want to do that. I mean, a lot of you guys, if you don't have the skill for that, it doesn't sound very fun. And it's not necessarily fun. It takes bravery. But you know what the cool thing about bravery? You don't have to be brave for very long to actually be brave. I went skydiving with Colton when he turned 18. We both got tattoos and went skydiving. And they tell you, like, when you go skydiving, you overcome that fear, you jump off the edge, and it's like this breakthrough, and has this big redeeming value that when you're done, that it's like all these barriers just break down in front of you, and you want to do it again, and all that. Bull. There was no redeeming value. We jumped out of the plane, and I hated it all the way down. The chute came up, I hated it, and I was on the ground. I was like, I never want to do it again. My new goal statement, you know. There was no happy ending to the story.
I wanted to go right back. Up.
But the thing about it, I didn't have to be brave all the way down. I just had to be brave for a second. And if you can develop the habit of 3 seconds of bravery from time to time, because after that, gravity takes care of everything for you. You don't have to be brave all the way down. You just do this, and then the rest of it's just, oh my God! Bravery is only that first second. It's just bravery when Jim starts to say, I say, you know, let's just get Colin on the phone real quick and have him clarify that. After that, the ball's in motion. Because Jim's going to say, oh, no, I know. It's not a big deal. I was just saying. I don't want to make a big thing. Now I know, does he want to work towards a solution and we're going to have an area that's moving forward, or is he building camps? Which stage of offense is Jim in at this? And if we can handle this quickly, you can keep your areas together and truly build upon the shoulders of what you built. You're building in 2020 on top of what you built in 2019. You're building in 2021 on top of what you're building now. So, and I can't tell you they always all work out well, but you begin to build a culture that in the future, Trina comes to Cullen and says something about me and says, David said something about you at the meeting. How much trust do you think I have with Cullen now? Jim comes to me with a thing, I take them both in the hallway, and then somebody comes to Cullen 6 months later, he's like, I don't think David would do that because here's how he handled the situation in the past. You start to build a culture where that just doesn't happen. It's not even acceptable. I'm not saying everybody's going to be love at the end of all these, but I can dare you, they're going to respect you. Love's one thing, respect's another. I'll take respect. Love is great. I don't need it from everybody. You know? Yeah, I would prefer that because, like, you know what? At least I could trust David that when this came, he said this, that you've got it there. So every conflict contains within it the seed of a deeper connection. I say this all the time because if I go through this, there's a pretty good chance, even if it's one-on-one, Wendy is offended or hurt by something I said. I joke around a lot, and sometimes I'll hurt people's feelings. I didn't mean to. There's just some debris. I'm like, oh, I was just kidding. And so, but inside of Wendy's offense, inside of that conflict with Wendy, I can avoid it and pretend like this isn't happening and be like, oh, I don't know. Wendy and I are cool, and let this keep building in my group or building in my area. Or I can lean into that uncomfortable conflict and know what? Inside of that, I mean, I believe this down as much as I believe I'm breathing air right now. That if I lean into this conflict with Wendy, that inside there's a deeper connection. That once we sit down and I say, Wendy, I'm sorry that tell me how that happened. She's a balloon and I want to let all the air out. She's just like, and then once all the air's out, a lot of times she's not even mad anymore. She's like, it was no big deal. I just kind of she wanted to be heard. And I'll let her tell her how bad I offended her, and it was a stupid joke, and I was just kidding, and she'll get a chance to hear my heart, and I heard her heart, and typically, 99% of the time, no harm, no foul. When it's handled quickly, she hasn't had a chance to build camps and let the offense grow. So I quickly and efficiently lean into that, and inside of that, I know that there's a seed of Wendy and I now trusting each other better. I now see the world through her lens. I understand her better. So, all right. I hope that helps. Your thank you. All right.